Welcome, everybody. Good to see you on a Saturday morning. I'm so happy to meet Sharon again. I haven't met her. I can't remember when the last time I met her, but we did have her with a solo exhibition at my old gallery in Gilman Barracks. And we go a long way back since like the early 2000s.
I think 2007, you invited me to be part, you had Wonder Space, and you invited me to be part of your Open Sea series of exhibitions. I remember that.
Yeah. So
First exhibition outside of Malaysia.
days when we were young. Okay, I would like to start this session by asking Sharon some questions about Port Dickson, because I don't think many of us know exactly where Port Dickson is or what it is known for, because I think this is very much relevant to the work that Sharon has done, at least in the past 10, 15 years, I feel. Yeah. So yeah, maybe you can introduce Port Dickson to us first.
Okay. So I'm a city girl. I grew up in Petaling Jaya or Klang Valley. Um, in 2011, I moved to Port Dickson. It's a small town near Seremban. So it's south from KL, about 2 hours drive from the city. So it's been over a decade that I've been there now. It's in Negeri Sembilan, a very big state with like 9 districts. So Sembilan is 9. There's in the 80s, it was a very popular resort town. So if you grew up in Malaysia, you'll have memories of going to Port Dickson. Yeah, it's quite nostalgic. But it's also an oil and gas town. So we have 2 oil refineries established by Shell and Esso in the 60s, and also 2 coal power plants. Original name for Port Dickson is Pulau Arang. Arang is coal. So it's quite a strange place. Many aspects of Malaysia are there. It's quite apocalyptic conditions there. But there's also, it was booming in the 80s and 90s, but due to the Asian financial crisis in 97, the late 90s, a lot of the projects were abandoned. So it really is this, like, different eras, different times of Malaysia's prosperity, and also the economic backbone that comes from natural resources. So Port Dickson is like a cross-section of all of these things.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Sharon has mentioned. It was a place where they manufactured coal, arang, as well as a tin mine in Lukut, apparently. And as for the oil refinery, right? Like Shell started in 1962, so it goes a long way back. And then Esso or ExxonMobil started in 1963. And the other interesting thing I found out is that one of the refinery is now run by Shandong Hengyuan Petrochemical Group, which is basically a Chinese company, from China.
Yeah, it's a China multinational. Yeah, it bought over the Shell refinery. That's the one that's next to my house, and that's the one that's featured in the work in Figuring a Scene.
Yeah, and another thing, I wanted to raise this because of Sharon's work and her profile as, I guess, advocate for the environment, and I see you also as a fighter for human rights. One interesting thing, the political part, because it's in your slides later, so I just want to have this as an intro. Like, what do you call that? Negeri Sembilan is represented by PKR, or Parti Keadilan, or the People's Justice Party in the parliament. PKR used to be the opposition, right? Yeah, and also in Negeri Sembilan, the other parties with MPs there, DAP, and also UMNO. So it's quite interesting mix. So there is UMNO, PKR, and DAP together in one state.
That's right. I think post 2018, that was the paradigm shift for Malaysia's political landscape, where we voted out the ruling coalition, Barisan Nasional, for the first time in Malaysia's history, since the formation of Malaysia and the independence of Malaya. So that was, we changed our government. We voted, democratically voted in a new government for the first time. So since then, old friends are no longer friends and old enemies are no longer enemies. Everything is reset in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that introduction to Port Dickson. If you go to Wikipedia, by the way, and you search Port Dickson, there is a huge photo of Port Dickson, and then right smack in the middle of that photo are the two refineries. It's like this chimney, smoking, and then that's the picture of the town. It's quite something, yeah. And you live on lot 1699 in Port Dickson, and I find it quite interesting because house number going by the lot number, and I find this interesting because of this whole idea of the land, and whether who owns the land, and it's quite old school thinking, to number a house and calling it by the lot number instead of just a house number.
Yeah, it's there's an atmosphere of like I guess 80s or 90s. No, older Malaysia. Yeah, this idea of the lot is like allotment. That's your parcel of land. But in my neighborhood, most of the residents there are people who used to work for the Shell refinery. So before it was bought over by Heng Yuan. So it's the refinery is not going anywhere. Yeah, so it's not something that can be solved in that sense. Living next to a refinery, it's an ongoing negotiation. That's why I think of Heng Yuan, as my neighbor. And I refer to Heng Yuan as my neighbor.
What lot are they?
They are the lot we were here first. That's what they keep saying. The refinery tells us, as an answer to the residents' complaints, insists that they were there first. And somehow, I find that an interesting narrative, because if they were there first, does that mean that they don't have to follow the law? They can emit whatever pollution that they want, and the reason is because they were there first. Okay.
Okay. And on this lot, I think we get into the work, yeah. So the work is titled "Creatures on the Move in the Depth of the Night." I think we had a good introduction, and maybe you can now bring us to your exciting slides that you have prepared.
Okay, let me play some slides for you guys. So this is a little bit of an improvisation on Patrick's title, and I guess I was a bit worried whether he would mind, but I think he's fine with it. And mothering a scene, it just like goes to show Patrick's spirit of openness. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to start, sort of set the scene with some biawak content. This is a biawak, a monitor lizard, that's taken up residence in my garden, and she has a missing arm, but she's fine. She's just continuing limping along quite resolutely. Okay, this is a music video by my friend Asmil Yunor. He's actually a really great musician, but he has a side project called Roarm, where he does these nonsense songs about animals. And this one is about a biawak. He has other songs like Lagu Katak about frogs, and it hits quite hard because it's about politicians who hop around. But this one is just about a biawak being a biawak, narrating about being a biawak to themselves, and then a lorry is coming. Anyway, and then, but I won't play the whole thing, okay? I'll just play a little bit.
Aku biawak, bukan macam awak. Kulit aku keras, tapi darah aku cool. Aku tak beranak sebab aku biawak. Ini aku bertelur untuk cara biawak. Jadi satu hari,
Okay, I stop. The footage was actually of a biawak in Thailand going into a 7-Eleven in Thailand. Okay, this guy in Negeri Sembilan, so same state as Port Dickson, he did this viral roti telur biawak. Those are chicken eggs, by the way. They are not biawak eggs. So it's a play on roti telur bawang. So it's basically roti telur bawang is a prata with eggs and onions. Yeah, there's actual hawker stalls that serve biawak curry, and stuff like that. So I'm not going to show that. But there's also biawak lore, like in Nusantara. There's the folklore of the kembar biawak or kembar buaya, the reptile twin. So there's this belief that crocodiles and biawaks have human spirits, and they are sometimes born into a human family, and they're treated exactly like a family member. So it goes quite deep lah. Yeah, not just pop culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, right, I want to ask. I want to ask. I think I am not sure of the details, but I know that Negeri Sembilan is quite close to Sumatra, right? And there was a time, I think there was 2 periods where there was actually a migration, like mass migration from Sumatra, from Padang basically, to Negeri Sembilan, which is why I think in Negeri Sembilan, where you are, the dialect they have their own dialect, right? The way they speak Malay is different, and would they have also brought some of these folk or cultural references that you also are embedding in your work?
Yeah, this part, like I don't have a lot of knowledge about it, but I know that the Negeri dialect is rounded. So if we say in normal bahasa or Malay, you say anak, it'd be onok. Satu ring hing. I can't really do it. Or nogri, onok nogri. Like that means you are a child of Negeri Sembilan. Yeah, but as to the other influences, I think in the cuisine there is some, but that's another part to explore. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, because people often, not many people speak about this actually.
We're so close.
Yeah.
On a clear day, I think you can see.
You can see
Yeah.
Indonesia, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
if you go to Tanjung Tuan, the Cape Rachado, on the border of Malacca, on a clear day you can see over to Indonesia.
Okay, so please.
So these are some of the puppet photos okay, so this is a biawak puppet that I made. These are some that didn't make it into the exhibition. It looks like sunrise, but it's actually the flare from the refinery. This is at 3 a.m. These are some behind the scenes, my dear friend Grace, and also my teenage neighbor Lisa, who helped make the puppets. We use barbecue sticks for holding the thing. Okay, this is also like behind the scenes. It's the back.
So is your studio also where you live? Or do you have a separate place where it's your studio? And whether there are other artists out there in Port Dickson as well, or are you the only one?
I'm not the only artist in Port Dickson. The other very well-known artist, in fact, she's my neighbor, is Simran Gill. Yes. I've never, outside of art residencies, I've never had a studio outside of home. Yeah, for some, and even when there's a nice studio outside on the residency, like I tend not to use it. Yeah, I've always worked from home, from the kitchen table, so to speak. So that's where I'm comfortable.
So when you have, how do you refer to them as your assistants, your collective, or how do you?
Friends, friends who are helping out. Yeah, friends who help out, and neighbor also lah, neighbors.
And how did you get these neighbors and friends involved? Because, as an artist, sometimes I'm sure it took you some time to explain to them what is it that you do, because sometimes you use these objects that you make for actual demonstration, for example, not for museum or gallery, right? You use it in a practical or with a certain purpose. It's outside of the institution.
Yeah, so these animals actually that are featured in the exhibition, they began their life like a few years ago. So the first iteration is actually in this book. It's an illustrated book that I did with my partner, Creatures of Near Kingdoms. So the animals, they form like the front and the end pages for the book. And at the time when I made this book with Zidek, my partner, he wrote the stories, I did the illustrations. There's only 2 smokestacks. So now there are 3. Yeah, this was in 2018. Now they added another one. And then, as you said, so from this illustration, okay, actually, since this time, we have also seen a lot more animals in the garden. This illustration is all the animals that we've had encounters with, and the book is in many ways inspired by our changing relationship to the environment. I prefer not to say nature or the environment. I like to say the land. Yeah.
How do you decide which animals and vegetation to include in your work?
So these ones were like the ones that kind of the most familiar to us. So it's about attention in a way. But since then, we haven't seen this python, the snake. We call Tok Batik, is a nickname. So this thing where for animals, Zidek's grandmother grew up in Kelantan on the east coast of Malaysia, and she had quite a free childhood as a girl. So she would go inside the jungle, and she would with her indigenous Orang Asli friend, and she told us stories about how, like, if you see the tracks of like an elephant, you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's gajah," or "Ada gajah mari." You would call you would say like, "Is atok or nenek," grandfather or grandmother. So you wouldn't call the name itself. Yeah. For a snake, like a big python like this, you won't say ular. Especially if you're in the jungle, you say tok batik. It's a form of respect. But also there's this idea that the animals can hear you. So they're not things or others. You actually have a relationship with them. For mice, if like you get an invasion of mice in your home, you say, we call cikmek molek. So they're like miss, lengloi, that form of address of them.
Are the nicknames all mostly in Malay? Like, do you have a Mandarin or Hokkien or Tamil or?
I'm sure that there are, but for me, like, I'm quite, I suppose, disconnected from the Chinese language. Yeah, so growing up is always Malay name, and also folk tales that feature animals a lot. A lot of our folk tales are based on animals, like Hikayat Sang Kancil, the stories of the mouse deer. It's, pretty much everybody knows that if you grew up in Malaysia and Singapore. Yeah, so I know the Malay names. For tiger is Pak Belang. Belang means stripe. So you don't say, "Hey, harimau," or there are signs of the harimau because he may come. You see, so you say Pak Belang.
So these stories, right, about like the folk stories of animals, and also these names, to a certain extent, it gives a certain power or it adds to the character of these animals. Does this affect how you think about them when you make the work?
Yeah, it really does because it's a different relationship than, let's say, nature conservation. For example, Save the Tigers campaign. You know, when you say that, you think of that when about a campaign. If about tigers, mostly what you interact with is the idea of save the tigers, save the tigers. We have a specific idea of the tiger is in our consciousness, how we relate to the tiger, how we relate to the biawak, to the python, tok batik, to the bats. And also some animals more glamorous than others. For like a pangolin, which by the way, one magical night, I have seen a pangolin in my backyard in Port Dickson, 200 meters, living 200 meters from the oil refinery. So they are there. The living world is there and they are our neighbors.
And how do they, can you elaborate a little bit whether some form of symbolism, due to their stature in society or in culture, enters the animals that you use in your work? Like for example, this biawak, right, the monitor lizard. Like, does it beyond being a monitor lizard? Like, do you imbue them with other symbolic meaning or?
Yes, but it's ongoing. So there are mythology, there are like scraps of anecdotal stories, there's folklore, but also there's the biawak right there in my garden. She's climbing the tree. She doesn't have an arm. Why is she still around here? I mean, maybe she's taking shelter for a little while. So it's a relationship, I guess, and very alive and developing relationship. Yeah. Okay, maybe okay, I show. So the next evolution for the animals was in 2019. There was a climate strike protest in Kuala Lumpur. So we enlarged. That's Grace again. So yeah, familiar faces. And that's Zidak on the right. We enlarged the animals into placards. We used old pizza boxes actually, and then took them for a march in the streets. Yeah. So this is the full party, but very very mild. Yeah. This protest, I would say, because this is 2019. It's post paradigm shift, post elections from 2018. So in that sense, like it looks quite jolly, no?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay, the placards were exhibited. This is actually where Patrick comes into the story. He was interested in the placards. He wanted to show the placards at Ilham Gallery for an exhibition he was curating, Dream of the Day. But I guess for me, I was hesitant, and also really I thought it was a curious choice because I feel, especially in a white cube space like Ilham Gallery, what I said to Patrick was the gallery is not a mirror to the street.
Yeah, this is very, very interesting. Like, since you mention it now, so I'm going to ask you, first of all, what it means. And from our conversation earlier, and I noticed that you also had mentioned Asas 50 or Asas 50, which is an artist association, mostly made up of writers in the 1950. In Singapore, actually, registered. So maybe we can get there. The gallery is not a mirror to the street, which is, I think, a very strong statement. And
yeah, and Patrick was I mean, it was a conversation. So it's very important to understand that from here to the shadows work, it was the result of this tension, I suppose, this conversation. Because the idea come that on the street, you are grasping different things. Kita pegang, you hold the placard, kita pegang. But in the gallery, you grasp things another way. And that's where the idea of the shadow come from. You are beholding. Yeah, you are not necessarily holding like this adik here in the gallery, holding like one of the placards. It's a different kind of grasping. Yeah.
So mirror and shadow, and then day and night. Because the title of Patrick's original exhibition is Dream of the Day, and then you decided to show the night. And instead of your comment on the gallery is not a mirror, your works are about shadows.
Yeah, because also we dream of the day. I mean, I was that phrase really pushed me because living next to the refinery burns 24/7. It never sleeps, and actually neither do I. I don't know about you guys, but I have really serious trouble sleeping. So the idea of shadow puppet as well, it came from the play between darkness and light. Without darkness, you cannot have shadow. If it's light 24/7, you cannot dream of the day. So that's why part of the title is In the Death of Night. Yeah, we have killed the night, basically. So, but back to your question about this, the street, I think I show, okay, so this was at Ilham Gallery. But let's get to this interesting question about the gallery and the street. Okay, let me show this. Okay, this is a march against the Internal Security Act in 2009. All right, this is I think the first protest march I ever attended, and also first time to taste tear gas. So we play we play this one, yeah. The monster is representing the Internal Security Act.
Actually, when I saw this video, it reminds me of the Balinese Ogo Ogo, which is a manifestation of themselves, of the people. And at the end of the parade, they're quite fantastically built now, even with robotics, And then, but at the end of it, they will burn it down. It's like releasing themselves from their demons.
Yeah, there's this aspect of release, but also aspect of also the monster, yeah, and a ritual as well, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can maybe let's okay. So these are friends from Lost Generation Space. That's Yo Lian Heng, and at that time, we did many actions like this. Lost Generation Space was quite central to a lot of like community, socially engaged artworks. Yeah, it was very formative for me as well to be just around this cohort. Okay, I think we can fast forward to 2 minutes 50 seconds. Yeah. Okay, so we're having a good time on the street, and then we see something coming towards us. This is the moment where you go, oh, beep, this is not a rehearsal. Yeah. So there's a consciousness that gets formed through experiences like this. Just as in the galleries there are different kind of consciousness that is being formed. Yeah. So in a way, this is what I mean by the 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 differences.
Yeah, in fact, in Southeast Asia, actually, if you think about it, there are quite a number of artworks that were originally utilized as objects in protest that ends up in the collection of museums, like including our museum, including Singapore Art Museum and National Gallery, like works by Taring Padi, you know, I can't remember them off the top of my head now, but in general, from Southeast Asia, right, from Philippines, from Thailand, from Malaysia, Indonesia, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's so. There's a tradition of that, no? I mean, of this crossing over from the street or the community into the gallery and museum space, and also into the acquisitions. Like, so these works of art become relics. I Yeah, it troubles me, I guess. I've been thinking about this question for probably a decade. Yeah, about this, on the street, I have another consciousness. Activism means another thing as well, another specific thing. For me, the term artivist is not for me. Yeah, because I see from lived experience, activism is different forms. It's a different kind of action, and then art is in a different realm. It has different, like I said, different consciousness. It's doing something else. But this view is maybe not very popular.
But, you know, which reminds me, in my past life as an institution curator, right? So,
You've lived many lives.
Huh?
You have lived many lives.
So, for example, in Singapore, one of the reasons why, strangely, to me it's strange, okay, to most people when you see it, it's not really, but you know, in Singapore, how we don't really see protests on the streets. You know, you have to get permits, and therefore you can never get the permits, and then, you know, when you do it, it's illegal, you get arrested, and it never is like big, right? It's always just as you start off, you get arrested. You know, it will never be like that. But we have quite a number of artworks in our national collection that reflects similar protests from other countries, especially neighboring countries. So the point was, for Singaporeans especially, to look at these works and get to know our neighbor better, that side of our neighbor. Because from what you read in books, right, you only get to see certain things. So from these sort of artistic expressions, from objects that were used in protests, like you said, they become relics, but they later end up in museums. They become a sort of an avenue for the museum visitors to also understand that place better. Because where else are you going to look at, you know, such objects? Where am I going to find them now? You know, so there's this, like, there's the position, your position as an artist, which, you know, I totally get, but from the institution, they have this other position as well, you know.
Yes, this is a really important point. Okay, we good with time, so that there'll be time to get to that, because it's quite important. I do have things to say on that. I think, like, about the link between, one of the ways that I have been resolving or like thinking through this question in a productive way, because it's not, there's a tiada kesudahan, like it's not like gonna be,
There's no end to it.
yeah. But one of the ways that I approach it is maybe this idea of ritual, and which you reference as well. So for the artwork, does this video play? Okay, so the shadow puppets. Pause, eh? Okay. Thank you. For the shadow puppets, some people have referred to it as wayang kulit, but for me, I'm quite resistant to that because it's more like I don't feel it's qualified to be wayang kulit. And if you watch these documentaries, just short clips of them, there's 2 videos. This one is from 1956, and you can see that they used to use oil lamp. Yeah, oil lamp. And then the second documentary is from 2002. That was when wayang kulit was banned in Kelantan by the past government. And then they have switched to electric lamp for the wayang kulit. And so if you watch these clips, I think maybe you will understand why I don't feel my work qualifies as wayang kulit. Okay.
Backstage, Tok Dalang has got into the mood of the play, and his face reflects the troubled thoughts of Sita Devi. As soon as Sita Devi falls asleep, the wicked demon Ravana enters the palace. And Tok Dalang now lives the part of the demon as he frenziedly manipulates the puppet. The evil Ravana has long desired Sita, so he puts a spell over the royal pair and over the whole palace, and carries the sleeping princess away to his island kingdom in the south. But Garuda, the fabulous giant bird who is a friend of Rama, rushes to the rescue, and a terrible battle begins. The story has it that the fight goes on for days, while Sita remains under the spell of sleep.
Okay, this is Feast of Shadows. This clip is actually a portrait of maybe one of the greatest practitioners of wayang kulit in Malaysia, Dalang Dolah Baju Merah, passed in 2005. So let's play clips from this one.
As he has not been able to perform regularly, the berjamu ceremony is of added significance. The process of getting a license for the berjamu has not been easy. Bureaucratic red tape has hampered well-meaning efforts. The Chinese community here has helped Pak Dolah. It is not impossible for the Chinese to apply for a license if it is considered a temple event. After months of negotiation, the permit is approved. Pak Dolah's only student is Chinese, surprising for an art form that is intrinsically Malay.
Budaya lain tak boleh, kalau bahasa budaya wayang kulit ni boleh agak-agak. Sebab saya rasa suka tu dalam cerita wayang kulit tu ada tempat yang berasa sedih di dalam hati. Pada rasa kalau pada mati dulu pun boleh jadi dia lah bawa kelakuan Pak Dolah. Kelakuan pemain wayang kulit.
Okay, I think the clip continues.
Dulu ada siapa-siapa model. Siapa model ni perjalanan perempuan kan. Ting 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 gitu. Dulu jalan perempuan cak ting dak ting ting cak ting kendi. Lama macam tu budak-budak kecil-kecil mengantuk. Dia pada lalu jalan. Jadi orang nampak macam tu. Orang tengok dia tahu. Golek pun nampak. Ini kita ding 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 cak ding 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 golek pun.
The entrancing music has also been mentioned as a cause for the banning of wayang kulit.
Palu-palu kan. Atas bunyi-bunyi kan. Turunan. Gendang dia bunyi sedap. Dia Islam tak benar lah bunyi sedap-sedap. Tapi dia buat juga barang sedap. Walaupun
This is a debate, still a debate now in Islamic society.
The performance begins with a swaying movement of the pohon beringin, or tree of life. Some scholars believe that it is symbolic of the child from Father Sky and Mother Earth. The Dalang Muda does the opening act.
Banana stem. Put the puppet.
Then Pak Dolah takes the helm. His hands consecrate the space. The first 2 nights consist of non-ritual performances. The story is about the trials and tribulations of Seri Rama's 2 sons, Kusi and Serawi.
Orang lain tak bunuhmu. Aku 2 beranak ni lah bunuh aku.
It begins when Seri Rama divorces Sita Dewi and banishes her.
Okay, yeah, I wish we can just watch the whole video and then we talk about it because there's really a lot to say. But if you notice one thing that I will point out, Pak Dolah bite his tongue and consecrate the screen. Actually, it's blood. Yeah. And then he does again when he touches the puppet. So this is the artist. Yeah. It's your lifeblood, it's your spirit. And this documentary actually is about Pak Dolah needs to perform his berjamu ceremony and is giving thanks to the spirits that have given him his talents for 50 years. So can you imagine if he cannot perform that ceremony, what happens? What will happen to the spirits, the spiritual part of the art form? Yeah. So yeah.
What happens is the puppets end up in museums.
That's
right.
What happens. So if we go back to our the artwork in figuring a scene, in many ways those puppets, they are props. They are resting, and the shadows are present in the gallery. So they are not. They are waiting. Yeah, waiting to be lifted and used. So it's not a dead object, but they are resting, they are waiting.
This reminds me of a book and a series of documentary made by this guy called Nigel Spivey from UK, and quite a long time ago. It's called How Art Made the World. And then he spoke about the concepts of like, how did the first human had an idea to make a sculpture? Who were they? Like, what was the first sculpture? So one of the things that related to this, he was asking the question, what was the first movie ever made by humans? Who made them? And then he decided to attribute it to Australian Aboriginal cave paintings. And then he said that the cave paintings, right, many people misunderstand, they don't live by themselves. They need to be performed. The cave paintings are a backdrop. And then there is a story that they tell when they perform, and there's a soundtrack, the music. So in order to qualify as a movie, you need narration, you need storyline, and then you need to for it to come to life to be performed by actors who, you know, the Aborigines, when they activate it, they perform it, you know, and there's a soundtrack, and then there's the backdrop, which is the painting. So it's kind of,
there will be fire as well. Fire, silhouette, movement, dancing shadows.
Yeah, all of those. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. Okay, I think we have. Okay, okay. So we bring us back a little bit to the space between the street and the gallery. This is Mandi Bunga, which in many ways you were responsible for. You invited me to do this participatory performance at Singapore Biennale 2013. And in fact, this walk from Singapore Art Museum to the lawn of National Museum where the performance took place was engineered by you. This experience of the participants walking from one place to another.
Also, what's interesting in this work, right, relating back to the wayang kulit and the ban of wayang kulit, basically in Islamic, what do you call that, thought, is the ritualistic part of wayang kulit or any rituals that they. So when we did this work, you remember there was a worry about that because mandi bunga or the flower bath could be a ritual, but it could also be a spa treatment. So as the curator, I had to like defend this to the community that, okay, what if the public complains? What if they think that there was some ritual involved in this? But what was amazing about this work is that after the 100 people did their bath at the lawn of National Museum, so in the open space, there was a thunderstorm, you remember? Like immediately after that, it was like raining like crazy.
Was the storm? I was like, it's coming already. The clouds are coming, but it waited
until the thing ended.
Yeah.
And the idea of this, I think, is close to you, and I think in most of your work, this idea of cleansing, of like rehabilitation, of like reflection and rehabilitation, and then moving forward. After you manage to cleanse, something, right? But with, like you say, with this oil refinery, it will almost never end.
Yeah, I think this is where we can. Okay, so one more anecdote about this about Mani Bunga was actually I was invited to perform this in New York. It was an exhibition called The Protest and the Recuperation. It's artworks about protest. But because of COVID, I cannot go over there. They wanted to stage it without me remotely. You remember this? And I asked Kai whether Malaysians cannot go. Maybe Singaporean can go. But it didn't work out. But in the end, I said no. You cannot do it without one of us there, because you don't know. This is not just like a
it's not theater.
It is not theater.
Entertainment. Yeah,
there are energy. The Mandi Bunga ritual doesn't just belong to me. Okay, it's not Sharon Chin TM. Okay, it's a community ritual. So I have responsibility in that sense. You see, to that. Yeah. But okay, and then maybe this last part about like, I can skip this. I think.
By the way, the Mandi Bunga, the day after that performance, that performance together, the action together, the happening together, right? We appeared on the front page of the Straits Times. You remember?
Yeah, it was.
So much for the fear of the Biennale Advisory Committee about people complaining, and like, it was on the front page, like a huge photo, on the Straits Times, and it became a talking point for the Biennale. I think it sort of like became the official, like performance to launch the Biennale actually. Yeah. But all unplanned, right? We didn't think about it
There were many uncertainties. There were many uncertainties, and in that sense, like that's how we brought that energy of contingency on the street. For me, the street is defined by contingency. You cannot plan. Yeah. You have plans, but anything could happen. So it's a sense of openness to what will come. That part's very important, and then to be able to bring that into like the space of art, that's a beautiful thing. This thing about, okay, if we come back to today, like, okay, about the institution, these questions that we've been talking about in our conversation. So the site for this work is an in-between space. It's a corridor between, this is the permanent collection on one side. Literally, there's a door on the other side. And that's Reza Piadasa's May 13, 1969 sculpture installation. So another kind of shadow that is peeking out at me. It means a lot for me to be able to look at the door and like see the artwork there. And on the other side is the dalam space where figuring a scene is. What I understand about dalam is that it's not necessarily positioning itself as a project space in the sense of taxonomizing the contemporary and then the historical. And then through some alchemy, some of the contemporary is legitimate enough to enter into the historical record. At least that's what I understand. Dalam isn't trying to do that. So the way that I understand it is about senses, the agency of our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we taste and smell. That's what the figuring a scene is about. That Patrick his idea. So it made me think about the ongoingness. This idea of ongoingness. We are not just in between. The in between, this idea of the liminal is like not here, not there. But actually, for me, it's the present moment. And how do we dwell in the present moment, both in the neighborhood, because this is the present moment in my neighborhood. This is what I live with every day. And from the neighborhood to the national, this idea of ongoingness. This is nighttime. Yeah. This is activism. This one, this spreadsheet. Okay, it's not a protest. It's managing petty arguments in the neighborhood WhatsApp group, and is compiling evidence, making complaint calls, just being a nuisance. That this is what activism is for me. So that's the context I'm coming from about art and activism. Yeah, they are not.
Yeah, and just now I was asking Sharon, like the activism part, and then there's advocacy, and whether you see the line between these two, and whether you prod like from one to another and back, and
I think in terms of like, because we seek to define not as an academic matter, that's not relevant to us. But when we say this is not the same as that one, is so that we can be more intentional with the action. So advocacy, it all has a role to play. Art also has a role to play about the consciousness, and activism as well. So not one above the other, or this does not qualify as that. It's not about that at all. It's really about a specificity. Quite important.
Can we mention, we bring it back, because we mentioned a little bit about Asas 50, right? So Asas 50. So AS, yeah, correct. AS 50, which was established in August 1950 in Singapore.
Yeah.
And one of the conversations that they had, and even the reason why they were set up, is this whole idea of art for art's sake versus art for society. And these were like quite heavyweight writers, literary figures back then. And of course, this subject is still like what we're talking about now, today. So what should art do?
So Asas 50, Asas 50 actually stand for Angkatan Sastrawan 50. And yeah, it form, you will know better than me, because I actually...
And Asas in itself is a word as well in Malay, which means the basis.
Correct.
Asas means the basis.
The basis, the root. I think of, because when I read the Malay poets from that time, right now I'm very obsessed about Masuri SN, one of the founding member of Asas 50, but also A. Samad Ismail. When I started to read them, quite recently, by the way, so I'm still a student of them, there is to read them in that Malay is to be in touch with the roots of that language, and also a consciousness that is coming out, that is being it's a new consciousness. So it's about a national bangsa is no longer just Malay or Chinese. Bangsa is like a new idea, a nation of it beyond this community or that community. So to be in touch with that root is very rich for me. And then also I begin to understand where these questions that seemingly when I first became an artist, seni untuk seni, the art for art's sake, or seni untuk masyarakat, art
For society.
art for society's sake, actually they come from somewhere. So the founding slogan of Asas 50 was seni untuk masyarakat, art for society. And then growing up in school, you will always be asked to write essay question about, is it better to live in the kampung or the city? Yeah. And this question, I think, is also a mirror. Yes. And so these questions, they are long and they come from, there is a root to them. And to know the root help us a lot to decide how to go forward.
I have one of the aims, I printed their aims here. One of the aims of Asas 50 was to advance the intellectual awareness of society. I miss artists talking like this today. You know, it's like you have a purpose, and you try, and to be part of society and to help it move and be more conscious of what's happening around it, and yeah.
That's right. You try, you fail, you don't complete it, but there's the next generation. Yeah, this when I read them, that's what thought that I have in my mind. Like one of the things about okay, so the question of institutional critique, for example, like for me, it's no longer productive. Have done that. And I find it not like in this moment in time. I was actually going to show slides of Venice Biennale flooded in 2019. Yeah, but I think there's no need lah. The awareness, I mean, you cannot become more aware already of what is happening around us. And when I talk about, so the name of the talk is Mothering a Scene, right? And so there's this idea that I've been thinking about, I find it strange experience to be in this show figuring a scene. And I think because the ongoingness is very present, is what's happening now. But then it's in a conversation about art history, yeah, and what the institution and museum seeks to be. So for me, how I square it is that the neighborhood mothers the national, and the national mothers the neighborhood. So is this relationship of an unfolding story? It is not done. The history is not written. We are creating it in the present moment, in the corridor. And it's no longer a question of the institution legitimizing the struggle, because the struggle is everywhere now, at this point in time. For me, that's why I say it's no longer productive. It's all hands on deck moment. And from the neighborhood to the national to the institution, we need to do what we can do to bring our contribution. Yeah, that's
So
the
not
idea.
a single party validates the other.
Cannot be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is not, for me, what I have seen is not the way forward lah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, before we go to Q&A, I have one question. So what is today your relationship with the refinery? Like your personal, feelings for this, where you lived there since 2011, right? That's like how many years?
15 lah, for 13, 14 years.
Yeah. Is it the same? The first day you moved in, and how has it changed? And then also, how has making work about it helped you, or I don't know, make you more angry, or
In a funny way, right? If it's not for the refinery, I won't talk to my neighbors. I don't know about you guys, but we don't really talk to our neighbors anymore. One thing is, everyday life is not set up for us to have a relationship with our neighbors. But because of the refinery, now we are a community, and in the process of building more community. That's one thing. The other thing is my senses. So to go back to this idea of keeping your senses alive, like where your eyes, what you see, what you smell. Because living next to the refinery, I also there are many times where I numb my senses. I cannot deal with it. And my neighbors also, they're like, oh, they're just like that one, you just accept it. You have to accept it because they were there first and so on. But I cannot fall asleep because it's killing me. I can feel it. So it's about that as well, where all this is our life force, our agency in that sense. So what we see, what we hear, all of this is to remain awake, to it. And your question about the refinery is a neighbor. And neighbors, that means we should negotiate, the way to live side by side.
Do people still go to Port Dickson to holiday, by the way?
Yeah, Port Dickson, there's still some very beautiful spots, very beautiful and sacred spots. Yeah.
Okay, so there's hope.
There's always hope.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you,
so
Kai.
much. And if you have any questions, how much time do we have?
35. We can have see the number of questions first.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, there is one mic circulating over there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Carolyn. I have two questions having to do with words. And so the first one is, why do you choose to say the land as opposed to nature or the environment? The second question is, for you, what is contained in the word mothering?
Okay, so thanks, Carolyn. Okay, so the first question is about the use of this phrase, the land. Why do I say the land? And the other question is about also what do I think about the phrase mothering? Okay, I say the land because it's not as such an othering relationship like nature or the environment, or we have to save nature, we have to save the environment, we have to do something like that. When like I'm going out to visit the mangroves, I will say I'm going out on the land. So we are going out walking on the land, we are being with the land. It's more intimate, I guess, not away from us, because this is the land as well. The building that this is on, this sky, the rain, the weather, that's all part of the land. So it's not like special places like national park that you go or nature reserve. The land is with us at all times, and it's the source of everything. So that's one of the reasons why. And about mothering, I think like mothering is the central relationship of our species. So you don't have to be a mother to understand this. It's about caring. So one thing mothers another. I mean, everything has come from something. Yeah, nothing is by itself, herself, themselves, himself alone. The relationship of mothering is to take care, and then we need to do that for ourselves. We need to do that for each other, but also to let the land mother us. We are not going to solve this on our own, but we are not alone. The land can tell us what to do and what not to do. If we have that kind of relationship with the land, there is guidance. So don't need to panic. Yeah.
There's this interesting thing I'm thinking about, East Coast Park in Singapore. It's a piece of reclaimed land, right? I realized only recently, after years and years like passing by it, that parts of East Coast Park has now become kind of forested. In fact, it's become a sanctuary for animals. So all sorts of birds, now we've got roosters and chickens and otters and whatever. When I look at it for many times, right, I totally forgot that this is actually reclaimed land. And that supposed forest was not actually deliberately designed to be a fake forest. I remember back then at East Coast Park, it was just trees, planted like anywhere in Singapore, right? But then one time, some years ago, they decided to cordon off certain areas and just let it be. So you're not supposed to enter that area. And then after a couple of years, it just became an actual forested like pocket. And all these animals started coming. And it's thinking of land and how something that was constructed, on sea feels now, if you, for younger people especially who are not used to that place, at least this East Coast place, right, will never know that it was literally like the trees you see on the streets here, very structured, and then you just cordoned off and just let be. And suddenly all these animals start coming.
She's an architect. The land. She's
And the
Yes.
mothers herself.
She mothers herself as well. Yes.
Good.
Beautiful.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. To learn a lot about the neighboring country and the history. I'm intrigued by the argument of the petro industry. We were here first, and I wonder when history begins in the political discourse and when history begins for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, about this question of the refinery was here first. It is an interesting idea, a narrative that has been put out by the refinery. So when the neighbors complain to the hotline, but also the authorities, the Department of Environment, have also repeated this line. It's like, oh, but the refinery was here first. So, you residents, you have to understand. Yeah. But if they were there in 1962, so the Shell refinery was built in 1962, it's not some like mythological origin story. Was built by the British in 1962, British oil industry, 1962. Like I said, many of the neighbors work for the refinery, and then Zidek grew up there. His father worked for Esso. And I moved there in 2011. Yeah. So, in that sense, the oil and gas industry built the town. The pipelines run throughout the town, and it's part of the architecture of the place. But if we go back further to the time when Port Dickson was known as Pulau Arang, coal island, actually the coal came from the mangroves. Yeah, because they make there was and there's many little islands around Port Dickson. So one specific one was designated as a coal production area. And so we can go back to then as well. It goes back, but also it goes forward. That means we can decide where it's going to go.
And I think because of Negeri Sembilan, right, where Port Dickson is it's on the east side of Peninsular Malaysia. and it's on the bend that juts out quite a lot. So it could have been the Singapore, actually, right? Because it's a port, right?
Singapore is special. That place, I mean, its location, yeah.
It could be,
It
because,
could be.
yeah.
It could be. In fact, because the Straits of Malacca, so this is the waterway, yeah? So I think it's in the middle of this Strait of Malacca, or maybe a little bit beginning. It's the most used waterway in the world, yeah. There's like tons of ships pass through there. I think something like 10,000 a year, some crazy number, okay? So I always see container ships on the horizon. It's quite amazing for such a heavily trafficked landscape, how abundant the biodiversity remains. So it's also a question of our attention to how we perceive the land. So for me, when I first started to go out on the land, these mangrove beaches, it's like it's only one beach only. It feels like it's only one landscape. But actually, when I kept going back again and again, so I don't go to many different places, but the land for me became intimate because I keep going again and again to the same place. And then I know the land and almost every face, at the night, in the morning, when it's raining, when it's sunny, and it's new every time, every time. Sometimes it's very beautiful out there. It's a perfect day. Other times, like there's tons of trash around. It's like her mood is down, that kind of feeling, not so beautiful. But it's this ongoingness, I guess, of the relationship. It gets deeper and deeper all the time. The oil platform exists there on my favorite beach, but the trees, the animals, they are carrying on with their life in that sense. And it also makes me, like I said, it helps me to understand, like, because those trees on my favorite beach, they are near the oil platform and also a jetty. And next to it is the TNB coal power plant. Those trees have not known a night of true darkness or silence for I don't know how long. But they are there and they survive and they're also thriving. So it gives me stamina, yeah, to keep going also. It's ongoing, you see? Yeah.
Any questions? I have a question. So, yeah, this is not related to the land question, but this is you as an artist, because I feel that you have been quite, what is the word? Like quite reserved. Like you're not one of those artists I know that seek opportunities like actively to exhibit in museums or to be in biennales or in galleries. You almost like don't want to be found, and therefore you move from KL to Port Dickson, and then, only if I know you, then I know you, and I go and look for you and like, what are you doing now, kind of thing. As an artist, can you, like, is that deliberate? It's true, right? That's why you're laughing.
I am laughing because it's such a cool question where, like, I suppose it's don't, I mean, it's in such a good spirit, and I never get the chance to talk about it, about the choices. Yeah, they are intentional, but also the deeper search, I guess, for me, like, and suka tak suka, like, art has provided a livelihood and has been from the beginning just something that I can do and get to do. But there are deeper search, that as the years go on, and the search has always been for home. So like a place where for example, I never related to this sense that, oh, I'm from a migrant lineage. You know, it's almost taboo to think like, because in Malaysia, the idea of the migrant pendatang is political, is racial. But when it's like, no, memang pun aku pendatang. Like my ancestors came. I am a migrant, so I am from a migrant lineage, and the search is for the commitments and the belonging that go beyond a piece of paper. They are citizenship beyond the birth certificate. That means nobody can take it away. Yeah.
And therefore, in relation, being an artist is beyond.
Art is the arena, the ring, the gelanggang, right? We always say, right? Where this internal search, deep searches of the spirit and the soul, they can become public, yeah, and they can be shared. And together we share. We don't feel so alone, and in that sense, like we are shaping society together. Yeah, that's how I see it in that sense. And I remember you said to me before last time, but somebody had told you this, that work makes more work.
Oh, yeah.
Is this one of your...
It's a Japanese saying. Good work, the reward for good work is more work. You know who told me that? Team Lab.
Who?
Yeah, Team Lab, Inoko from Team Lab. He said, yeah, the reward of good work is more work.
In that sense, there's a letting that also take care of me. So from one thing to another, there will always be something more there. So I try not to panic, try not to like worry about what's going to come next. It's difficult, yeah, because we are all scared, huh? Oh, it's like, oh, how are we going to keep going?
No, also, this is interesting because of your dual, I think, the way you activate creative energies, right? Both on the arena of art, like you said, as well as in the public space. You know, like with the protests and or activism, even with neighbors right now and all this, right? Because they know you as an artist, you know, and then they know that you can be an advocate or an activist through quite creative means and not just write complaint letters and, you know, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, so I feel this duality interesting, like you exist as an artist in two spaces, whether consciously or unconsciously, and also the decision not to actively pursue presence in galleries, in, you know, and all this art fairs and.
Wait, this is the conundrum, you know, because the more I'm active in the art world, I like to come to Singapore because it's close. It's close to home, and I don't need to be away for too long. Because the more I'm in the art world, there's a hypermobility, you know, associated with being a contemporary artist. And the more I engage with that, the more I'm taken away. So I miss the changes in the land. I miss the neighborhood. If I'm not there to kind of poke that neighborhood group, it's not really going to stay together. It hasn't reached that point yet anyway. You know, that sometimes things take on a life of their own, but we are quite far from that. So I need to be around. I need to be there a lot. That's how I see it. And like, I have organized my life so that I can be where I love to be, but also where I'm needed. I know I'm needed there. So that gives me a sense of stability, a purpose. Yeah, whereas previously it's like, my career lah, you know, art career, yeah, and there's a sense of it's never enough. Yeah, Whereas now from here there's a root. I say the rootedness, yeah, and it's rooted in place.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions?
If
Anymore?
not, and thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Kai,
Thank
for
you,
your
Sharon,
sharing.
so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kai.
Thank you. And thank you, National Gallery,
Thank
for
you.
inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, National Gallery.